Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And a good morning at you. It's April 23rd. It's a Tuesday, meaning my sister Susan's going to be joining us. Suze?
Yeah, it's just the 23rd.
What are you wanting it to be?
I don't know, like closer to the next election. It's been years now that I keep wanting to. I'm back to where I was as a very anxious young woman when I kept thinking, in 5 years I'll feel like, I've gotten to a comfortable place. And it was always like 5 years down the road. And I'm back to thinking, in maybe a year and a half I'll feel like we're back in the country. Do you remember that feeling, or was that just me?
No. And I think when you're young, 5 years is an eternity. But at our age, time.
Yeah, a year and a half is about as far as I can go.
Yeah, and you shouldn't wish away any day because
it goes. Well, here's the thing: at our age, it also goes by in the blink of an eye,
right.
And it seems to be crawling.
Well, right. That's another thing.
So I'm going to have to sit back and enjoy the magnolia blooms.
There you go. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I rode in on the bus today, and I spent the whole time watching a video on YouTube of a bunch of people rescuing a dog from, he was about to go over a waterfall, and it took them, 10, 15 minutes. It took different people doing different things. They were all strangers coming to, and I was completely, enthralled by watching human beings behave, altruistically, humanely, cooperating with each other for no reward, for nothing other than doing. It was so. It really was wonderful. And then I looked up and I was here. And I thought, oh boy, okay, back to the real world. Yeah, I don't know, Suze. It's gonna be a long, long slog, and it's difficult to know where do you stand at this point. I know when Susan and I were together this past weekend, and
on impeachment versus non-impeachment versus investigation.
Right.
I'm beginning to, I had swayed all the way over to I think it's best to investigate. And the more I think about it, the more I think that it is the duty of the Congress to say, no, there is such a thing as a norm. There is such a thing that is not acceptable behavior in our chief executive. He can't, really? You really want to test this? How far are you going to take it? Do we need to put him out on Fifth Avenue to shoot somebody before anybody does anything? This should be impeachable over and over and over. And part of it is Giuliani out there now trying to say, there's nothing wrong with getting help from a foreign government. Well, yes, there is.
Yeah.
If there is a law that says it is illegal to take money for election purposes from a foreign entity, a foreign government, then taking in kind anything that benefits the campaign is also illegal, and my proof is that you would have to report it. Anything that you receive that is of benefit, whether it is in form of money or services, needs to be disclosed. So yes, it is a crime.
It is something of value, but that's not the only.
And what bothers me is that we've got a whole group of politicians and that are in control that are intent on misinforming the populace about what their law is. And this populace is more than willing to believe it. And it just bothers me. I mean, where do we start? I mean, I've said for years we start with going back to having a class in 5th grade or 8th grade called civics.
Yeah.
But it's the whole thing. No, I think I'm back in impeach. How about you?
Well, I am. I think that's. I think there's a responsibility, excuse me, and a duty to do that. And I think you can. The people arguing.
Well, and Pelosi's.
Well, listen.
Pelosi's argument is a political argument about why not to. Her argument is not that whether it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. Pelosi's argument is that it's not the it's not the right thing to do in terms of elections.
Right.
That it might backfire. And I don't, excuse me, this is the job. It might be unpleasant, and you know what? It might backfire. But it is your duty, and therefore you have to do it.
I think it is, too. I think it's, this is the historic, this needs to be noted historically, that this president, his conduct went well beyond what is tolerable.
Well, MSNBC just flashed up a poll that says 59% of Democrats agree with us.
Yeah, I think it'll grow and grow. This, and so they need to be made aware of that. I would. This is where you do get on the phone and
Pelosi needs to understand that her political equation is amiss. She's made a mistake in the algebra.
Well, I mean, I far be it from me to. Why can't my voice is going?
Okay, well, let me say this while you are clearing your throat. I don't think that we can hold Republicans accountable for their amorality and their political judgments and do the same on our side and hold our heads up. I think we have to do the right thing.
Right. And I just want to say that I don't know that Pelosi is totally opposed to impeachment, but I think she thinks that the ongoing investigations that are actually getting not very far, because every inch of the way, for every subpoena and every...
We're going to have to sue them for all the material.
But you know what? An impeachment situation would probably result in the same thing, would it not? Or does it change?
Well, at least in the impeachment situation, we are able to subpoena the same witnesses. They can get McGahn up there to testify, to these things, and that seems to be, they can get Cohen up there to testify. They can get whoever they want. And then they, based on their own gathering of information from these people, don't think that they don't have tons of documents already, leaked or otherwise. But and maybe the courts will expedite this, but at least they need to be seen to try to do the right thing.
Okay.
To protect us, to protect our, representational democracy.
I am being told, this is just an aside, that Susan is much louder than me.
Uh-oh. Well, that's, I have to go back to my formerly sweet person.
No, it's not. No, this would be audio level-y kind of things. It's not that you're, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm barely speaking because I can't. But I don't know. It's a real, it's a difficult issue, but I just think Democrats need to do the right thing, and the right thing is to put a marker down in the history books that this was intolerable and this president unfit. And you do that by impeachment with the full knowledge that it there will probably not be a conviction because the Senate, which is the jury here, has abdicated all of its responsibilities quite clearly in fealty to what they worship, which is, I guess, tax cuts. What is it there for? I can't quite figure it out anymore.
State power.
Just raw power. And, a lot of times I think as Democrats dither about this and what are we doing hand-wring, just stop and think if the tables were reversed, what Republicans would do. My God, impeachment would have started a year ago.
President Clinton would have, with the same Hillary, with the same charges levied against her, would have been, out of office so quick that there would have been, tire skids on the driveway.
So
I mean, you know what they would have done? They would have just and Obama. I mean, really. And the fact that there shouldn't really be any discussion about this.
Well, there's going to be plenty of discussion about it because
I know
right
there's going to be plenty
their
of discussion, but
are being very cautious, very cautious.
Well, but if we don't do it, the norms are gone.
We let him lower the bar.
Standards are gone.
Well,
we have writ large that you get to do whatever is politically expedient, and everything else be damned.
So, you
can't do it.
I mean, the odds are, if there is an impeachment, I'm trying to figure out the timing. So the presidential campaign would be taking place at the same time, right, as the impeachment? How long would the impeachment take before it's sent to the Senate?
That's when I allow people to get politically expedient. I mean, you might want to time it, like you're playing within the 2-minute warning, and you want to lobby off your bombshell, on election eve, and you don't really care whether it comes to a Senate vote.
Right, but then
they can impeach after the election. He's still in office.
Right, but if you push it so that before there's a Senate vote, there's the election, and the American people.
Well, I think that you time the vote of impeachment in the House to the election eve night, and what happens in the Senate is of politically no consequence, and might change depending on the vote.
No, but you have to you have to do the impeachment vote well before election night because you need all of the witnesses to be called. You need to see these people saying.
Oh, no, you need to have the vote. I mean, but you want to wrap up right at.
Well, right. Okay, right. Yeah, because, well.
Once you start the impeachment process, I give you all the permission you want to behave politically within the system, because this thing will indeed speak for itself. It is in and of its essence, political to release all of this, swamp water into the public viewing. But it will be riveting, I think. It'll be interesting to hear out of the witnesses' mouths what went on.
It's a lot more powerful.
And I think if you run this, carefully, and you can schedule all these committee meetings and do it quite deliberately, right up to, maximal effect, I think you can do the right thing and benefit at the same time. I really do.
Although I do get queasy second-guessing Nancy Pelosi, because I do feel she's got such a, first of all, strong political instinct, but also I value her understanding of how things play out.
And I'll take it under advisement, but she's got to. I mean, right now, all she's saying is that in her political calculation, it's the inappropriate thing to do. And I start out at the place where I think that answer falls short, because it speaks nothing of the duty of Congress.
Yeah, well, I'm with you. I mean, to me, we've got that duty, and she is the
right. So if we
House.
Start there, then
yeah.
If you start there, Lynn, then what does her experience and it's a calculation that you and I have already deemed inappropriate.
Yeah. I don't know, though. Republicans, what's the eye on the prize? I mean, what's the prize? The prize is a Democrat president. That's right. She is fearful that this would impede that. I don't agree with that, and you don't
I
either.
do not see the two things. This is
But-
totally separate, and I want to be able to hold our heads up as Democrats. Don't I mean really? Don't we all?
Yeah.
Don't we all want to do the right thing for the country, and aren't we mad at the other side for not?
Yeah. We're always the good guys, I guess.
Well, we have to be the good guys.
Well, somebody's
That's all,
got to
right? I mean,
somebody's got to
I
hew
think,
to what used to be the norms. Somebody has to pay attention to what the responsibilities of these branches of government are, and it's quite clear that the oversight responsibility that was given to the Congress has been absolutely disregarded for far too long in every way, and has resulted in a much stronger executive than we've ever had. And that might be okay if the executive is, rational, but the executive wielding all that power right now is nuts and dangerous.
right.
So
and he's just openly defying Congress, and in every way he's telling officials not to comply with subpoenas. You're going to have to, sue him every step of the way, but that's fine. Let's expose the stink. As what's he hiding? We have a right to know. To bastardize some beautiful quote. If not now, when? And if not us, then whom?
Yeah, I think you did bastardize that. If not now, when? If not, I have not a clue. Little Tony, though, is on the other side on this. He says, I'm afraid that impeachment could help Trump get reelected, and that's a price that's too high to pay. At this point, to hell with doing the good and noble thing. It's not that I don't think he shouldn't be impeached. I just think it's not worth the risk. I'm with Nancy. P.S. Susan is always louder than you. Susan, that's not... I've had two people say that now. It used to be, didn't it, that you couldn't hear people that were, and now it's the other way around. Okay, well, we'll try We'll try to even things out a little bit. I don't know. I wish I knew the right thing to do. We're all flummoxed these days because all the benchmarks we had for how a country functions, how we work, it's all just been...
Yeah, you see, I just don't think... Impeachment to some extent is always a political calculation. Of course it is. But I don't ever recall this kind of dithering about, when you got a guy that has the number of impeachable offenses is sort of mind-boggling.
Right.
And, and we could say just, screw it, because, he's going to go to jail so fast after he, loses this next election that it'll be amusing.
But we got ahead of ourselves once before,
Yeah, I know.
And we thought he would lose the election, and he didn't. This is what's scaring us. Paul Krugman.
Well, good thing. Okay, we remember what happened. So here's what we have to do. We have to make sure that doesn't happen again. And all that requires is a ton of us getting out and all voting for one unsplintered opponent.
Well, that'll be something to see, but we haven't gone through this process. We don't know if the Bernie bros will tolerate voting for somebody other than him. There's already polling showing that they won't. I mean, that he's got a certain cadre of people who are unwilling to vote for the Democratic nominee if it is not him. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them. So I don't know. Who knows how much we will damage ourselves in the process of choosing a nominee. It's scary. Because there's going to be like 30 people in the race. There's going to be 30 people in the race. Biden's jumping in when? Tomorrow or something? I don't know. Paul Krugman in the Times today says that something that we have said before, but, you know, the Republican Party has abdicated its responsibilities in every way. It has even abdicated the values that supposedly were the bedrock of what it meant to be a Republican. And they have also clearly abandoned and abdicated America and its values, American values. So it is really clear they are a party that is. How would you even characterize what the Republican Party represents? How would you characterize it? Rich
lies and corruption.
Lies, corruption, rich corporations, misogyny. And he points out that everything the Republican Party stands for...
racism, and I mean anybody but old white guys-ism.
Right. That their whole policy agenda, if you look at it, is unpopular with the American people. Because by large margins, the American people say that they don't think the rich and corporations pay enough in taxes. And by even larger margins, the people of this country do not want cuts made to Medicare, Medicaid, and safety net programs. Yet, if you think about it, every Republican budget proposal over the last decade has been those two policies. Cut taxes for the rich and corporations and cut Medicaid. So take from the poor and give to the rich.
Them.
And you ask, so how do, he asked the question, so how do they win elections if their policies are so unpopular? They do it by lying. They do it by lying about their policies. And they do it by playing on racial resentment. That's it. They win by appealing to the fears of white people, and they win by lying to those same people about what they will do.
Well, but that doesn't explain all of the non-white people that actually vote for these people.
Well, there's not a lot. I mean, there's a bunch of brown people that do. There's not a lot of black people that vote for them.
No, but there are a bunch of brown people, and
well, that's true, but that's because I think a lot of brown people are come from conservative cultures, and the liberal social leanings that Democrats embrace are off-putting to some folks from more conservative cultures, so they're uncomfortable. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, Krugman says the simple fact is that one of our two parties, the one that likes to wrap itself up in our flag, no longer believes in American values. And it's very much up in the air whether America as we know it will survive this.
Well, did you see the article, I can't remember, probably the Washington Post, a few days ago about the billionaires beginning to get worried about whether capitalism can survive? Right.
Right. Yeah,
and basically saying what I was saying, which is what makes them think the French Revolution can't happen to them, you know?
Yeah.
And he does think it can happen.
Yes. And that capitalism, is off the rails, has gone off the rails.
Right, and just like people are not fooled, like when all of these oligarchs in France ponying up millions of euros for Notre Dame, while people were saying thank you, they were also pointing out that these were the very same people that said they didn't have a pot to piss in and they couldn't pay any more taxes.
That's right.
And that they were going to be deducting these millions and, in effect, having the taxpayers pay for, a large part of their largesse. And so this was an actually very interesting report about how people are suddenly not being so grateful that Bill Gates, gives half his fortune away. But, big deal. He's still controlling the money. He's still just, making all the policy decisions, and he's still not paying the taxes. So
it's not enough to let this very
no longer
small
enough.
group get that rich, and then we are going to rely on them to help the poor amongst us.
Right. If all of your workers are floating up with you, people are suddenly noticing. And you know what? They'd rather you keep the name off the building and pay your people. It would be better for the nation. You'd be living just as large, no problems, but everybody would be better off. And you wouldn't be playing these shell games, taking all the credit and actually foisting at least a third or a fourth or up to a half of the costs onto the taxpayer.
Gigi writes, I have contacted all of my representatives to let them know that it is time to convene impeachment and hearings. We cannot tolerate this disregard for and dismantling of our democracy. If we do not take a stand now, when will we? Enough is enough. I don't agree with Nancy Pelosi on this one. I don't either. I mean, it was right when the Mueller report came out and I saw it, I thought, my God, you got to impeach. It's our duty. It's our duty. I don't know.
Yep.
So, speaking of that, so I watched, there were all these town halls on CNN last night. I mean, if you want to see some of these people who would be the next president, and it's sort of hard to watch it all. I happened to catch a little of Kamala Harris, who, seemed just fine. I think one of the reasons that this Buttigieg comes across well is he doesn't quite talk like any of the others do. The others all sound like politicians do, that the words they are saying they've said a million times before, And it always seems with him that he's sort of talking off the top of his head. And that's appealing to me.
Right, that he's actually listened to the question and he's answering the question in the moment.
Yeah. And whatever, I still find him very, very appealing.
Attractive.
She is.
Well, I think
appealing.
everybody's off, surprised by how well he's doing and how it's holding.
Yeah, so far.
People aren't changing their mind. I'm not changing my mind.
Well, yeah.
I'll be happy with anyone else, but with several of the others, but, I think there's a lot of talent out there. But right now, that's where I would cast my primary vote.
Well, I don't know. I guess. I don't know, though. I just don't know. What about Elizabeth Warren's latest thing? I do like... She's saying she would...
I like a lot of their ideas. I think there's some wonderful ideas being floated out there by a lot of the candidates, and I think that's what's so wonderful about having this larger pool. All of this introduction of all of these policy options that a lot of people don't think are options because they hadn't thought of them.
Well, they've been told that it's impossible.
It couldn't possibly happen.
You can't have Medicare for all. You can't have a Green New Deal. You can't have a
restructuring of student loan debt.
You can... And because all of this costs a ton of money. It is true, but she just flat out says, yeah, you get the money by making the rich and the corporations pay pay taxes.
If they had paid their employees properly, and their employees wouldn't have had to take out loans to go to these colleges, and if loans hadn't become the way this country decided that upper level education should be paid for. I mean, when I went to Washington University in St. Louis as an undergraduate in 1969, I had a guaranteed for 4 years tuition rate of $2,500. That's what 4 years at a so $10,000 was what the tuition was for 4 years at a premier institution. That same institution today, tuition is, I'm sure, at least $200,000 a year, equaled by dorm costs and such.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's $50,000 a year. It's $50,000 a year.
Well, that's not 200. I know. I mean, any school now, it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable.
$50,000 at 4 years is $200,000.
Yeah, but you said.
And there are. No, I didn't. I said over 4 years.
No, you didn't.
I didn't know.
We'll go back
$200,000 a year.
to the tape.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, all I'm saying is we've created all these systems. Like our insurance system that says that a tube of cream that costs $5 on the outside to manufacture can be sold to at an uninsured price of $480.
Yeah.
The systems don't make
any sense. So in some ways, the voters who are, just throwing their hands up and saying, just blow it all up and start over, I have a sympathy for that.
Well, they aren't wrong.
No.
It's not, but they have to focus. They can't scattershot. They have to focus on picking a system and fixing the system.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it might be painful. Rip the bandage off, but blow up the system. Yeah, people, imagine no private medical insurance.
Yeah.
Boo-hoo. That's a bunch of CEOs not going to make any more money, and that's fine. They've got plenty.
There was another article, just to change the subject, because the subject gets me down. Let me get 2 more emails in on the subject before I do that. Ed writes, first, how long will impeachment take at the minimum? That's what I'm unclear about. Will the findings during impeachment be public knowledge? Well, absolutely. I mean, impeachment is
public hearings.
Is a transparent public process. So, yeah, that is why it's so powerful. It ain't going to be closed door. It'll be out there. Will the findings, if public, make some Trump supporters switch to another candidate? I don't know. Might make them sit out. Might make them... I don't know, might energize them because their darling is under attack. But there aren't enough of them because we're now aware that we got to go to the polls. I don't think his base is not enough to elect him.
No, if we turn out our voters, we win.
Right. And Ed's wondering, will the findings in the impeachment process make more voters vote Democratic? Well, that's not what the process is for. But I suspect the spectacle of hearing people tell their stories under oath about what that White House is and all the criminal things he tried to do that they refused to let him do, all that coming out is certainly not going to, I would think, drive people away from voting for a Democrat. Ed says Democrats need to pick a very good candidate that almost all Democrats will get behind. Yes, the question is, how are the Democrats going to do that? Well, I don't know. If they manage to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory again, then the Democratic Party is while maybe not as corrupted as the Republican Party, is certainly as moribund. I mean,
yeah, and far more broken than the Republican Party.
Yeah.
So let's not let that happen, I have to say.
okay, this is from, I think, a Trump supporter. Mark, I have trouble understanding a lot of what you say. He says, impeach, do it. Drag the country through the mud again for another 2 years. Bring it the fuck on. You think there's a reward? Go ahead. Make my day. Yes, he's saying it'll backfire. This is from a Trump supporter. I don't think so. You know, you can't...
Right. Just because you're the Trump supporter doesn't care what his president has done or our president has done doesn't mean that most good Americans agree with you.
Right. Okay, I'm changing the subject. And we've talked about this before, but
okay, I have something that I think is great too. But anyway, go.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh no, did you read about the high school students, journalists who were shut out of a open roundtable with Betsy DeVos and I think the Kentucky governor for journalists. Okay.
Right, but go tell the story.
Okay, so they have this roundtable on charter schools, invitation only for journalists. They do not invite any student journalists. The subject is charter schools, and public school newspaper journalists wanted to attend,
Right.
As did some other journalists who were not invited, and also not invited were any representatives of public education. No, none. So there's nobody in that. This is going to be a one side of the story thing. So student journalists try and get in and are refused admission because they did not RSVP. And of course they could not RSVP
because they weren't invited.
Because they were not asked. So the story is a wonderful story in that all things are educational. That was always my rule as president of the school board. Everything is an educational opportunity. And what these kids learned was when you're shut out of the story that you went to write, that becomes the story.
Right.
And they publicized this and they wrote about it, and it got picked up, obviously, by the national press, who publicizes the disgusting way in which they are shoving their agenda, in places that people have absolutely no idea is happening, and they're trying to shape the conversation by inviting curated press and feeding them stuff that without anybody telling the other side of the story. So that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is Mark Zuckerberg in this, I think the same beleaguered state of Kentucky, has gotten a whole school district to basically throw out their children and let the Zuckerbergs put it together, the curriculum all on laptops, 8 hours a day, with simply a mentor teacher circulating occasionally.
Well, that's not a school.
No, and after 4 months of this, one poor kid has more seizures than they used to have. Kids are getting headaches. Kids are, uninvolved and bored and crying. Parents are screaming. They have decided that their teachers are. This is what happens when you have a concerted effort to convince people that the most important thing in a classroom is not the teacher at the front of the room.
Right, it's a computer. No,
and
this is
that,
where they're going to...
dear folks, is a lie.
Yeah.
It's just a lie. And putting a face on a computer to talk to 1,000 kids is not the same. And having a mentoring teacher walk through is not the same.
Oh, dear.
And expecting a 5-year-old to be able to lead their own educational story is such nonsense. It makes me want to puke. But anyway, I thought those two stories appearing side by side were very interesting in terms of the assault on education and the bright lights of the students themselves standing up and saying, "This is the pits. Cut it out."
God. All right. Well, then I'm going to my story, which won't, your story started being slightly uplifting and then got me depressed by the time it was over.
I know.
All right,
I can't help it.
All right. So I'm going to go to something that is absolutely of no consequence at all, really, much.
Good.
But it is something that has the potential of having consequence in certain people's lives, but this is something that they don't have to do. And I've talked about this before, but the science section of the Times today has another report on it, and I find the subject interesting. It is that increasingly, as more and more people Botox their faces, the science...
They have no empathy.
That's right. And relationships suffer. So they get Botox that paralyzes parts of the musculature of their faces. And what they disrupt is their ability to emote in ways that, we're not, what it is these are
it's not even emoting.
Things. We're not aware
mirroring.
of this. We're not aware of this kind of thing. And they point out, imagine, a baby. Well, we were just with Susan's beautiful grandchildren. And they say, if a baby, gives you a big smile, what do? You reflexively smile back. And the baby gets it, the baby sees. We learn from the time we're this big to read.
It's called mirroring.
Right, to read each other's faces in very subtle ways, ultimately. And this has been the case since, we lived in caves. This is evolutionary. Unfortunately, when you take away the ability to mirror the baby's smile, you're cutting off a communication that used to happen because you have decided you are going to paralyze or stretch or plump or something, your lips, your eyes, whatever. And what you end up is feeling like you look younger, but what you have done is you flattened your affect. You have made it difficult for you to connect to other people and for them to see you connecting to them. This is not the kind of stuff we're aware of happening, but it happens.
Well, it's also part of the science that, so if someone is telling you a very sad story and their eyes well up in tears,
yeah,
and their mouth goes down, reflexively, frequently, at least your mouth goes down.
Right.
And you might also just reflexively well up in empathic tears.
Right.
And this is informed, your brain is informed not only by the sight of this, but by your face's reaction.
Right.
So as your face goes down, it's telling your brain you're unhappy, and the tears come to your eyes. And so it's a system. We're little machines. It's a system. And when you go in and you deliberately paralyze part of the system, you're turning off that communication to your brain.
That's right. So this article says again that the fact that more and more people are doing this, it's truly worrying because every time you interact with another person, the two of you subconsciously and subtly reflect each other's facial expressions. We do this all the time. We're not necessarily conscious of it, but by mirroring the other person's expressions, as Susan was saying, you not only signal that you are engaged and participating, but it's also a kind of feedback loop that helps you then empathize. If you hinder your ability to do that, even a little bit, because you don't like the wrinkles around your eyes or something, you are changing the social dynamic between you and every person that you interact with.
Can I just add on an editorial note that when I look at a woman who's got my age, who's got a totally unlined upper lip and no wrinkles in her forehead, I don't think how young you look. I think you're full of Botox.
Yeah,
it's not like you look.
Like
you don't look better to anybody.
I don't think so.
It's a tell. It's simply you're walking around saying, "I'm very vain, and I'll let people stick needles that are painful and pay lots of money for it every 6 months."
Well, I think
and
it's
I'm
mostly
telling
because
you don't look better.
They do it because I've got friends who do it. They do it because they don't like what they see in the mirror, and they want to look like they looked before when they liked.
But they don't.
And well, they sort of do. They sort of do. But who are they kidding?
I guess.
I mean, who are you kidding? And then there's this nonsensical stuff of the fact that you could even be disconnecting yourself from good interaction with people.
Well, you're right. I'm right. Like it has a real effect. It is not of no consequence. And okay, we'll agree to disagree about whether people, I know people think they look better that way, and it's important for people to feel good about themselves. But then I'm going to put it all over to this, this feminist slant of stuff that is, why are we telling ourselves that it is socially unacceptable for a woman to age?
I know.
That's not right.
I know, and
why should I accept that?
Right. They
why can't someone say you look beautiful? Because you've lived for 67 years and you got a wrinkle. Why is that not beautiful?
Well, culturally, we've been programmed, and as women, this is all part of a misogynistic thing too.
That's right.
Women are only of value in as much as they are youthful and lovely. And the minute, and so women, a lot of women incorporate that lesson. Maybe certainly more readily than you have or I have, because we ain't going to do this stuff. But I do see women around me doing it, and I think, first of all, what a waste. What a waste of time, energy, money. And then imagine the anxiety that drives you to do that.
Well, and because in cases of people, going in to have surgery, you're literally risking your life.
Always.
And I'm telling you, I know people that have died for the sake of a nose job.
Oh yeah, right.
We know
aware.
people.
So, okay, it just says this, but with all you Botox folks, most of the time you're not even consciously aware that you and the other person you are talking to are involved in this micro mirroring exercise, but your brain registers it, and it contributes to your feelings of connectedness. So if you or your partner fail to reflect each other because you've just been Botoxed, you may feel unsettled and disconnected and not know Why? Muscle movements in the face sustain interactions between people. And if you take that out, you're working with a blank slate. This is from a professor at psychiatry at Pitt. And he says that's not an effective way of maintaining rapport or establishing connections. So he's saying the more you do this, the harder it is to really be there with another person. You've frozen part of yourself. You know who's done it, and I worry, it is Pelosi.
Yeah.
Doesn't she look odd? Her eyes look particularly odd.
Yes.
I mean, she is amazing in that she's 80. What the hell is she? She's 79, I think. Or is she even 80?
I think she's 80.
You do? And she
I'm not.
still, I mean, you know, she's 79. She looks ridiculously good. But there are times when I see her, when she's speaking, that her face doesn't move.
Right.
And that's off-putting to me. And I guess it's because it's not a normal face anymore. But I mean that she works so dang hard, and she's always looks, beautifully dressed and is always walking around in those 3-inch heels at that age. I don't even understand it. I mean, that's a superwoman. But I wish she hadn't done the Botox stuff.
No, I wish for all women that they felt so good about themselves,
right,
that they didn't need to do this.
Right.
And I want to convince women that the most important part of you is really, really, really not how you look. Let's just face it. 90% of us aren't that great looking. So if that's the scale, then we start out life as losers. I'm not going there. I refuse to let that be the scale of women's worth. It's like this guy that they want on the Fed who said that, did you read about, what's his name? Is it Simon? Some guy.
I've got it right here.
Yeah.
This is such a revolting human being. Stephen Moore, who with, what's his name, Kane, are the two guys that Trump wanted to put on the Federal Reserve Board. Kane has now disappeared. But we're left with Stephen Moore, right, who wrote a lot of columns for the National Review. And he denounced the feminization of basketball. He denounced co-ed sports. He argued that women should be barred from refereeing or covering men's games unless they're good looking.
Or wear halter tops.
He also wrote that female athletes were seeking equal pay for inferior work, and added, quote, "Is there no area in life where men can take vacation from women?" Well, you can see why Trump...
Poor beleaguered white man, the question would be better, is there no place that women can take a vacation from you?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Unbelievable.
But see, I mean, it's one of the reasons that it becomes difficult to be cheery is because there has been this outpouring of acceptance of this boorish activity. So you can't have a discussion of anything without suddenly that popping up. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think I was talking about that a little bit yesterday. That's the internet. The internet has unleashed our worst selves and has weaponized everything. So outrage is the default status of everything. And the way their algorithms work, it buttresses this kind of thing,
Right. The more outraged you are, the more it pops up, right?
Right. And there was I don't know what... Where was it? You can't... there's a quote from somebody here. who's saying that if you think you're going to get a handle on this, forget about it. Social media has blown the lids off all the controls that have kept society in check. These platforms give voice to everyone, and some of those voices are malevolent or they are certainly false, and they now have a megaphone that they never, ever, ever, ever had before. And one executive who said, if people are trying to get a handle on this now, forget about it. You can't shut it off. It's too late. It's true.
Yep.
So that's what we've
done.
That
one left the station, yeah.
Yeah. Jeez. And I saw this little story, too. Vietnam broke its national high temperature record over the weekend. I mean, this is happening just so you know, it's happening all over the place. It was 110 degrees in Vietnam. They have never, ever seen a temperature like that. It was 30 degrees over what the high
normal
would be.
Yeah.
It said it softened crayons, liquefied chocolate. People don't have air conditioning there. It says it's so brutal, so scorching hot. You can imagine the impact. It affects daily life. People aren't able to do their jobs. Whatever. Just so you know, you see these stories over and over and over again. Ay, ay, ay. Okie dokie doke, I think I'm getting there. So, Suze, there's just...
You think?
Huh?
I said, you think? Have we?
Well, we're a minute or two short, but, I got some other stuff here, but it all looks pretty depressing, and I just don't want it. I don't want it. I can't.
I got it. I can't either. I mean, I'm trying very hard to just, focus on nice things. It's absolutely beautiful here today. It's going to be balmy. Things are about to pop.
Yeah.
It's the time of spring and renewal. I'm trying. I'm trying to claw myself out of here.
Yeah, we all are. We're all struggling. We are all struggling. It's really something. Well, yeah, and I'm not going to try to just,
just quickly, at the last second. So how do you think the Supreme Court's going to do on the census question?
The census question.
That's what's being heard today.
Yeah. I'm scared. I mean, this court is terrifying to me.
I'm okay. If they don't find this to be a reasonable constitutional issue that only has one decision, then okay. I wish I hadn't brought this up.
No, there's a lot of they're starting to take some cases that are really fraught and frightening, and make no mistake, there is a strong conservative court here now.
Yeah. But conservative, just to remind you, used to mean sticking to the literal interpretation of the law, and if they do that, the Constitution says that it is an enumeration of the thing. Now, they're going to argue that the whole thing hinges on whether it's this guy's right in spite of that to make the question to whatever he wants, regardless if it's a proper enumeration. It's his call. And, so that's going to, if they decide it that way, I'll be unhappy. Constitutionally, I can't imagine anybody coming up with anything but the correct answer.
Well, we'll see.
It's whether they reach that question, and that's my prediction, that if they reach the question, it gets decided properly. If they don't, it's because they allowed themselves the out of the administrative decision-making process.
Yeah. There's been some cases. The court, there's been indications that the court is not running real smoothly right now, that there's a lot of anger on the court. And it's being, I've been meaning to share this story about how Justice Breyer, just wrote this blistering, angry dissent to something that I don't even think it was a dissent. I think it was a memo to the rest of the court when they failed to give him and other justices time to revisit something, and this was
right.
also
They made a decision at 3:00 in the morning,
so that they could kill somebody.
Yeah.
So that they could execute somebody.
Right.
And it says here that things have quickly gotten ugly at the court since the replacement of Justice Kennedy. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Okay, so I have very little faith in the court, and it scares me.
We'll just see what happens.
All righty, Sue. Thank you.
Okay.
And
see you soon.
Yeah, and safe travels.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
bye.
All right, you guys. I'm going to go out there and grab the little bit of sun, I guess, that's going to be there for the next hour or two, right? Before après la deluge. No. Is that après mean before? No. Le deluge. Or is that after? What is before in French? Listen, I don't have much in the way of What? Enfant? E-V. Oh, avant. A-V-A-N-T. I must leave avant le deluge, because après, I think, is after it. Adieu.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.